Welcome back, friends. Up to video number 24. Video number 24 was on the positive influences or friends of cost reduction. Today, this is the 25th video from Delta Eta Cost Management, and we are going to see who are the enemies of cost reduction, the force of cost reduction, or the negative influences who increase the cost of a product. All enterprises have both negative as well as positive factors. Our job is to ensure that the positive factors are there, are promoted, and the negative factors are prohibited or minimized. So today let's move to the force of cost reduction. The first four is the variety in products, missions, and locations. You might have heard the saying that variety is the spice of life, variety adds color to life. Very much true, but variety adds cost to your product. Variety in terms of products, in terms of sizes, in terms of machines, locations, they add to your cost without even you knowing that. I have just shown you an example of the different types of buses used by KSRTC, Karnataka State Road Transport Corporation, to cover the distance of the entire Karnataka region. You see here there are about 10 different types of bus service. What I mean by 10 different types of buses that you see each bus is catering to a different segment of the passenger. Some are catering to the city service guys, some are catering to the premium class long distance passenger, some are catering to the normal long distance passenger, some are overnight buses. Okay, so this is the kind of buses which is being used by KSRTC. Now, what is the variety you see in this types of buses? Again, don't take me wrong when I say that you should not have variety. You must have variety, but it should be on a limited number. And wherever it is possible to avoid, try to avoid it. Now, in this example, the first thing which comes to your mind, what does it comes to your mind, Vishnu, when you see this kind of picture? So many types of buses. What is the variety you see here, number one? You see, now you find about 10 different types of buses, and each bus has got a different color scheme. You require around 15 types of colored paint to have these 10 buses running. So each bus has got a totally different color scheme. Now this red is not same as this red. This white is not same as these whites. And this blue is something okay, common. But see here, this green and yellow combination is totally not there in any other buses. And this blue is not common. Also, this yellow is not common. So you see, first, number one, the number of different paints you have here, paint colors. Now, maintaining these paint colors is expensive because you need to get these buses painted according to the paint, these different paints. So you are going to waste a lot of paints whenever you change colors. This is the first one. Second variety you have here is that the makes of the buses. In India, you have Leyland, you have Tata, and then comes the Volvo, Scania, and all these kind of long distance buses, double axle, single axle buses. Okay. So this is the second variety you find. Third variety is the number of types of services you have. Now, I don't say that all the buses should be catering to the city population, or there should not be special buses for long distance night travel. But within the city, within a district, if you are going to have a normal travel, why do you have different types of buses for that? See, I think this is a city bus, whereas this is a city bus, whereas this is all long distance Mofshal buses. plying between two districts. This may be a long distance night bus. This is also a long distance night bus. So if you can bring it down to 3 or 4 types of service, 4, maybe types of colors, 3 or 4, and types of bus also, maybe 1 or 2 or maximum 3. When you have so many varieties, you need to keep different spare parts. You need to keep different types of tires. Okay, so unless you have the specific tire size or you have the specific spare part, that bus is of no use. It may join the list of idling buses. And even if you have a fleet of 10,000 buses, it is possible that 500 buses are missing, are not getting on the road just because of one part missing. So my first for cost reduction is the variety you have inside your organization. Sometimes you find some variety, some models, they don't even have any customer base now. It's outdated, but still you keep that model with you. It's because of the variety. So I suggest that you always keep variety to a minimum. Imagine you had, like in Bombay, you have the local trains, which has got ladies compartment, which has got first class compartment, which has got the normal compartment. They all have the same color scheme, but only just the pattern is different. So it's easy to identify them. But at the same time, the same color is being used, so there is no wastage of paint, or there is no wastage of time while getting these tracks on line. Okay, you have the seating is different, which can be changed immediately. So this is the variety in products, which reduces the increases the cost of your operations. Next one is procrastination. You must be aware of this word procrastination, which is basically delaying or postponing things, postponing doing things, postponing doing any action. In an enterprise, postponing any action is very, very expensive. Not only in enterprise, even in our homes, in our daily lives, postponing something which is to be done becomes very expensive. Today's routine work, if it is postponed, next week it becomes a urgent matter. A week after that, it becomes an emergency matter. After that, it becomes crucial or critical. Let's say you have a bill to be paid, your credit card bill. If you don't pay it on the first, which is a routine, then you start getting your interest. By 5th or 10th, the interest soars. And if you cross a month, you become a defaulter and your credit rating goes down. The same thing happens inside the enterprise also. So any activity you need to do, let it be time bound, and please do it at the right time. What can be done today should be done now, okay, and not tomorrow. What can be done tomorrow should be done today, and what can be done today should be done now. The third four for cost is a large hierarchy. Most organizations start with a small hierarchy, and in course of time, as they grow, you keep on adding layer after layer of management staff, workers, coordinators, and all in between, leading to a big hierarchy. You have a president followed by a vice president, 2 or 3 vice presidents, followed by general managers, 4, 5 GMs, and down the line you have n number of managers, and then you have a small group of people to work. Now, it's good you have too many, when you have many counselors or many advisors, it is good. But at the same time, it adds to your cost, and it also delays the execution part. Imagine if the president, if it is something initiated here and it needs the approval of the president, it has to go through 4 layers to reach the president, 3 layers to reach the president. And the same way it goes down also. So the execution part also becomes expensive and it consumes time. Also, the approval parts become expensive. Instead, try to have a flat organization as much as possible. Apart from the issue of this too many managers, what happens is that each one comes with his own method of working. So let's say this manager and this manager have got two different methods of working. Okay. And this man happens to report to this gentleman right now. Let's say after 6 months, he goes to this lady. So you will continue whatever habit you picked from him, as well as study about her habits. So you will have now plenty of reports for the same purpose. And each one will have their own way of making reports to the president, and maybe both of them must be going in for the same subject. So this is what happens when you have a large hierarchy. Um, Seldom do people accept or agree as the level goes up, and then they have their own method of working, and everybody thinks that their method is the best method. You can't question it. So what happens is that you find there's a lot of delays, as well as there's a cost increase. When I was working, there used to be a form for people who are going on vacation. And at one time, we found that this vacation form is going through about 8 different departments and signed by 8 different people. So later, when we reviewed it, the question asked was, why do we need so many people to sign? There was of course, being in Saudi, there's a company accommodation and company mess. Okay. Now, whoever is going on vacation, he has to take the signature of the company mess authorities. Agreed. But what about those who are staying outside? They also have to take the same authorities' signature. Same thing happens when you borrow a calculator or stuff like that from the office. Whenever you're going on vacation, it has to be returned, and the office secretary has to sign that this has to be returned. This is returned. For a calculator of, say, 50 rupee reals or a punch or a stapler, your paper has to travel 50 meters. So later, a boss came who said, no, this is not required. We were only 2 people had to sign. One is the department head and one is the HR head. Then it goes to the finance department, because HR was given the authority to approve. Why? Because they had to make sure that he is eligible for the vacation. And his boss was the one who was to sign the say approving vacation, because he only knows what is the work pending in the office or in the department. So this kind of delegation or this kind of streamlining made that form, which used to have 8 signatures, come down to just 2 signatures. So large hierarchy adds to the cost. Make it minimal so that your cost is minimal. Next in this segment is the petty cash expense. One of the biggest force of cost reduction is the petty cash expense. A petty cash expense, you must be aware, it's basically for any emergency purpose. You give a small fund to the manager or the secretary, and there's somebody who's given that authority to keep the petty cash and keep account of it. So this petty cash expense exists in all the departments, all the companies. Now, what happens in some companies? Each department has got different petty cash, different amounts, and whatever is purchased in that petty cash expenses, there is no audit for it, because it is meant for emergency purpose. See, for example, in a manufacturing place, you are missing some screws, or you are missing some sleeves, which you buy from the local market. These don't go into your stores and become accountable. So you keep on buying in this, that by petty cash, that the loss of money is not traceable. Traceability is lost. And second thing is, whenever you're buying in petty cash, the price per unit used to be exorbitant. Why? Because when you buy in bulk, you're buying from the manufacturer or from the wholesale importer, and you're buying a bulk quantity, say 10,000 pieces. But when you go to buy 100 or 200 or 500 pieces, you're buying from a retailer, and there's a whole chain of middlemen in between who add their profits to it. So what you are getting at X from the wholesaler, you will get at 1.5 or 2x from the retailer. Plus, there is a lot of mismanagement in between, that the petty cash expense is always very, very expensive. So try to minimize the petty cash expense. It's unavoidable, but try to minimize it. OEM space, you must be knowing what is an OEM, an original equipment manufacturer. Keeping the space of such OEM machines is pretty expensive. For example, if you're buying a CNC machine from FISUP, Italy, what happens is that their spare parts, if it's FISUP spare part, it's quite expensive. You need to stock it, and in case you don't have it in stock, you have to buy it from them, and it takes about a week to get it here. Instead, and normally such spare parts are couriered, so it adds to the cost. Instead, let's say you have a equivalent spare available in the market, or you can get a similar one and modify it to suit your machine. It may not give you the long life which the original machine gives, or the original spare part gives, but it may give you 60-70% of the life. And if it is not going to be harmful to the machine or the people, go for it, because it helps you to save time, it helps you to save cost, as well as a lot of headache. As a factory manager, what I observed was most of the OEM spares, instead of buying one, you buy two. You use the one, and the next one is kept somewhere, which you may not use for 2 years. And by the time you go searching for it after 2 years, it is lost already. There was an incidence of even a galvanizing kettle getting lost after lying there for more than 2-3 years. Traceability becomes zero after some time, and then you go for a new part. So suggest that OEM spares also try to minimize its use. If you're not getting it along with the consignment, see to it that you develop an alternative supplier locally, so that whenever you need something, it can be done. Courier charges also another major expense, which is not traceable. Courier, something became like a part of life for many companies, that they know only one method of sending material, that is by courier. Especially contracting companies, when they are doing some projects, because that small part might be hampering their entire activity. So they are forced to bring it by courier. Of course, there can be some emergencies where you have to resort to courier service, but courier should be avoided at all costs, because bringing by courier is very, very, very expensive. And the worst thing is that you don't know the drain from your accounts. From your cash flow, you are going to give money to the courier fellow, and this is going to be non-traceable, adding to your cost. So basically, this is going to drain from your profit directly. So try to minimize couriering and try to bring it by the normal mode of transport. Unplanned activities, as you may know, calls for emergency action. And when you are doing some unplanned activities, the first thing which happens is that you need to sacrifice some planned activities. You don't have additional resources that your unplanned activities and planned activities can be done at a time. So the resources are limited, forcing you to abandon some planned activity and pursue some unplanned activity. So once on one side becomes expensive to do the unplanned activity, and the other side you are upsetting some other customer. So many sacrifices need to be made. So unplanned activities should be minimal. Normally in enterprises, what happens is that the factory manager or the production manager gets a call from higher ups in the sales or in the management, and you stop all other activities and start doing this. The person at the other end, he doesn't know the hardships or the loss that the company is going to undertake because of this unplanned activity. And the production manager or the factory manager, just to please his counterpart or his boss, he will say, oh sir, it can be done, but at what cost is not reflected to him. So these kind of activities, unplanned activities, always creep in. I noticed that it was very difficult to schedule any order because the moment you schedule something, somebody else will come with another schedule. That is how this planning activities itself came into existence. And the higher the hierarchy, the bigger the demand. What if something is committed in 1 week? The next question, why not in 5 days? And if you agree 5 days, why not in 3 days? So it becomes expensive. So if there is some unplanned activities, please be prepared to give a reason why unplanned activities should be avoided. Downtimes, this is also a big enemy of cost reduction. Whenever you are having any mission under downtime, it means that it is no more under production. It is idling until it gets back to life. It is expensive to repair, time is lost for the production, and then the mission is not in the right condition. So try to minimize the downtimes by keeping all your missions up to date. It should be in ship shape. It should be ready for use anytime. So please don't avoid or neglect maintenance. Please give very high importance to maintenance so that all the missions are in a good shape, ready to work for whenever they are needed. It's not only the missions I'm talking about. Your vehicles, your power systems, your communication system, your connectivity, your manpower, your vehicles, all should be in good condition. Your forklifts. Yeah, sometimes just for the want of forklift, you have the entire unit down. So always have missions maintained well so that the downtime is minimal. And by downtime, you are actually losing your production. This is where you get your money. So if you're losing money in, if your mission is not working and producing you the goods it is required to produce, then naturally you lose money. 21, point number 21 is pilferage and misuse. You see, in any enterprises, there will be a lot of pilferages. There will be a lot of misuse also. A smaller vehicle being used for a bigger purpose, a bigger vehicle used for a smaller purpose. Both are wrong. One example I'm just showing here, there's an egg beater and a drill. Okay. You can attach something to the end of the drill and it can be a good egg beater and it can be much faster. Okay. You can keep it at a distance and do it. But is it the right equipment to be used? This is misuse. So use only the right equipments. Sometimes you find on the emails with 15, 20 copies, marked to 20 persons. Now, this is a big misuse. Are all the 20 going to act on it? And imagine if all 20 are going to give their suggestions. When will you move forward? Everybody will have their own problems. So let's minimize the number of emails being circulated. Let's not misuse the internet facility provided. Let's not misuse the personnel provided. Sometimes you find 2, 3, 4 orderlies. So this is an expensive practice. Okay, so pilferage and misuse should be minimized. The steps in a process, the more the steps, the more the cost. The more the steps, the more the time taken. More the steps, the more the people involved, the more the steps, higher the chances of mishaps. So minimize the number of steps. Whatever you can minimize it. The more the steps, the more the cost for you. So I'll show you a small. I think the video is missing. There was a good video about the steps in a process. An activity of getting an approval from a boss and filing the paper takes about 65 steps. Too expensive. Non-compliance. This is also a big foe of cost reduction. Whenever there's a non-compliance with any statutory bodies, whenever you're violating any norms, it becomes expensive to the organization. All kind of non-compliance is an expensive habit. It adds to your cost. So statutory bodies violating norms, customer specification not being met, payments not paid on time, payment defaults, it affects both the morale as well as the reputation of the company. So try to minimize non-compliance or try to eliminate non-compliance, I would say. So with this, we come to an end of this session on influences, negative influences or force of cost reduction. So use the influences wisely so that it is not a direct action on your cost reduction effort, direct method of cost reduction, but the indirect method of cost reduction. It acts as an influencer and gets you the cost reduced. So whenever you're doing cost reduction, also look for influencers who can help you to reduce the cost. I'll just recollect there was two types of cost influences we saw. One is friends or positive influences. The other one is negative or force. Friends help us reduce the cost. Force help us to increase the cost.